Hello everyone, Storm11 here. Today we'll be checking out my April 2022 forecast. We'll be going over some of the factors for the month of April, some of the weather models, and also the Climate Prediction Center's forecast. And of course, we'll be checking out my own forecast as well. Before we get started this video, if you guys would like weather-related content like this, you can subscribe to my channel. We do this type of stuff here really at the first day of each month here of the of each month here as well. So if you want to see my May forecast, definitely stay tuned towards the end of the month or sometime around that time frame as well, which I'll likely post a forecast for May sometime in the near future, around towards the end of April or early May, depending on how local weather goes on. So let's first get started with sea surface temperature anomalies. And you can see here a couple of noticeable things. We still got that stubborn negative PDO. This thing's been around here for months. What's also been around here for months is this La Nina. I think it's slightly weaker than the last time we looked at this, which was about a month ago. So it has slowly weakened, but the La Nina is still around. And when we look into the Gulf of Mexico, generally average, maybe slightly above normal. Over the Gulf of Mexico, things have cooled down a little bit off the East Coast, which if we check out the 7-day sea surface temperatures of the changes, you will notice there that the La Nina or the Enso region, there are some parts of the Enso is cooling off a little bit, but generally most areas are kind of around average in the La Nina or the Enso. But look at the Gulf of Mexico and off the East Coast. We have cooled things off a little bit, and I think we do expect some of this cooling here to continue later this week here, where we could potentially see a big cold air blast for parts of the eastern U.S. But up here near the Gulf of Alaska, where our PDO region is located, generally been pretty neutral. But also, I should note here, really the last time I checked this out here, sea surface temperatures have been more neutral. Seems like it has cooled down a little bit, so the PDO or the negative PDO might have gotten a little bit stronger as well, which may be a bigger influence for the month of April as well. If we check out the PowerPoint from the Climate Prediction Center, they update this once a week, every Monday. And let's check out and see what's going on the subsurface temperature anomalies. And you can see here, going back as far back as February of the 2nd into March the 24th, you will notice here that the waters are getting cooler below the sea surface. It is getting cooler. This is a sign that the La Nina may get a little bit stronger here as we get deeper into April as well, which is pretty interesting. Usually right around this time here that the La Nina will be weakening. Well, really this time it might be trying to gain some strength. Now, Nino 1 plus 2 has been warming up a little bit, and the same thing for, I believe that's Nino of 3 or 4, something like that. But regardless here, I think the La Nina is likely going to stick around for pretty much for the entire month of April. Should we check out the forecast here? This is all the way back to March 10th, so this is a little bit outdated, but you notice here, for pretty much for spring here, there's about a 90% probability that we're going to see La Nina, and I do expect it to continue and again throughout the month of April as well. And there's nothing really much of anything else to look in here. And really, that what kind of influences the Enso a little bit is the MJO or Julian oscillation. So this is kind of the update forecast here from the GFS Ensembles. And you can see here there's not a very strong agreement. And if I'm correct here, pretty much for the entire month of March, I think the MGO has been kind of neutral. And kind of looking at this now, it does look like that some of the models we may get out of neutral state at some point. And for right now, there's not a very good agreement here of what potential phase we get into. Now, the phases can be pretty important here because the Julian oscillation can impact our weather as well. So, for example, if you pay a little bit more attention to the darker shades, that's where we may have a slightly better agreement here. I know the yellow lines here are the individual members here, but where we have this kind of this darker gray shade here, which if I highlight right here, this is where they kind of have a slightly stronger agreement here. So they kind of first go into phase 5. And this is what phase 5 looks like. And I lost it. And if we find that again, right here. So I guess we're not going to use the paint thing on here. But you can see here for phase 5 here where my mouse is. Generally cooler in the eastern US now. Then again, it's not going to look exactly like this. Keep in mind that because there's other factors out there. You got the teleconnections to keep in mind of as well. But this is what phase 5 looks like. So generally cooler to the east. There is some warmth across portions of the western US. If we go back here, we got some members getting to phase 6, which looks to be probably more of the stronger type of agreement here, given by the gray shade is a little bit deeper into phase 6. And then bam, you got warmer than average anomalies across pretty much most of the eastern US. And then you got troughing across parts of the northwest and the northern plains as well. Now that would be a pretty classic severe weather setup if phase 6 were to turn out. Then you get into phase 7, which in phase 7, similar to phase 5. Cooler in the central and eastern US, some warmth begins to build back into the portions of the western US. So if this continues on, if we kind of flip through these phases like 5, 6, and 7, kind of for that entire month, this kind of gives you an indication that the pattern could be very active. So you like for the eastern US, you may get a trough, and then all of a sudden you get a big warm up, and then you get another big system that comes in, and then you kind of get another big trough. And that kind of continues, and it kind of continues like in a pattern. Rich, trough, kind of continues through. That's an indication that could be a pretty active pattern as well, which could also lead to some severe weather when you have a pattern like that. That's something we've been kind of experiencing here, kind of over the last several days here locally here in Kentucky, where we've been generally been cooler, but every time that we get a big warm up, it always comes with a threat of some strong severe storms. So, and I think we're going to see similar like that, but I think a lot of these milder days here, especially towards mid-April, are going to last a little bit longer as well. So really by the MJO, but I also should note here that this is not a very strong signal here getting into phases 5, 6, and 7 here. It's actually closer to the center here, which is an indication that the MJO may be a little bit closer to being a neutral as well. And these phases here may not be too much into effect with our general pattern here. So if that's not really going to be affecting our pattern that much, let's check out some other factors. So let's check out the models here. So this is the Cfs model here for April. And if we kind of check out the tail connections a little bit further north here, you will notice here that number one, over Greenland here, we've got a positive NAO situated. We got some ridging going on over Greenland here, and possibly I believe that is, actually, I think that's hold on, I got these backwards here. Whoops. Get this quick fix here. That's actually a negative NAO. Apologize for that. And this is a negative AO up here, which leads to some ridging here. The negative NAO is over Greenland. You got ridging over Greenland. But you also got some ridging over the Arctic Circle. So some of that troughing is not going to be up there. So where's it going to go? Could be somewhere around British Columbia in Alaska. This is where your negative PDO could really take some shape here if this were to be correct. So what this will do here is that a lot of your cold air could be situated more focused in the northwestern part of the U.S. And some of that could get spilled in the parts of the western U.S. And you could get some of these type of setups here where a low kind of moves into the western U.S. It leads to a big trough here. But at the same time, ridging is going to build in the east parts of the eastern U.S. And in between that is where you can see some active severe weather as well, which I know the CFS model doesn't show too much ridging here with some of these black lines here, but given by some of those above normal height anomalies here. That could be an indication there could be some ridging out in some of these areas in there as well here. And your average low pressure system track could be something like this here. You get big lows that could go through parts of the plains and parts of the Midwest, and you could have some severe weather in the warm sector as well. If we check out the Cfs model, it's a little bit different here. Troughing is a little bit more stronger here. Also, the southeast ridge is not as pronounced either. Now, the Kansas ball has been a little bit rough here over the last couple months, was something I should note as well. It's been a little bit overdone with the cold air in the eastern U.S. over the past couple months. But either way here, it still shows some troughing across portions of the north here. And it's kind of has a little bit of horizontal top of flow here. It's pretty flat, but still there's a positive, then again I messed it up again. That is a negative AO over Greenland, and you also still have, that's actually a positive, or I meant negative AO. I don't know why I keep messing this up today, but that's a negative AO, and you also got a negative NAO as well. And that does lead to some troughing to move a little bit further south here. But there's also a little bit of ridging across the desert southwest, and some ridging may try to build in the southeast. So the Kansas ball, and then again I should note here that the Kansas ball's not been doing a really good job, so I could probably take this as a grain of salt here. But even with this type of setup here, you could possibly still see some severe weather subs in the eastern U.S. because there will be times where that southeast ridge could get a little bit stronger here. If another big system kind of comes in here, there could be some severe weather involved as well. Which, if we go back to Cfs Model, look at to precipitation, you would notice here with the stronger southeast ridge, it's got the potential for some severe weather across parts really anywhere from the Texas or Canada region up into the Midwest. From the Cfs ball here. It's also got above normal anomalies across the northern plains and also the northwest. Also look at drier across the four-quarter states of the desert southwest. And kind of average across the eastern U.S. as well. So with the Cfs ball with a slightly stronger ridge here, it kind of keeps some of the heavier precipitation a little bit further back to the west as well, which the CFS does tend to be a little bit overdone the warmth here. So if you kind of put that factor into play here, this could be a little bit further to the east in reality here, but I could be wrong. And then you got the Kansas model, which could be a little bit overdone with the cold air. It's got the precipitation much farther to the east here. More of a classic active winter setup here. This will be a really good winter storm track if this were to be like a January or something, but we're not in January. We're in April. So, the Kansas model shows possibility for some of the more active severe weather in the Ohio Valley and Tennessee Valley, which I still would believe that parts of Midwest could be involved with the severe weather possibility as well. It's also got a lot of drier than normal conditions across most of the plains as well, which is also interesting as well. Let's check out some ensemble members. So this is the GFS ensembles. We're going to go based off a 5-day average here. In fact, that's a more accurate way to look at it. And if we kind of get deeper to April, you'll see here early April, a big trough will likely set up in the eastern U.S. At the same time, there will be a big ridge in the western U.S. And partially this is due to some ridging here just to the north here, kind of over Greenland. There's also ridging over near the Arctic Circle, so that's going to be able to push some of this cold air a little bit further south here. Also, same time here, you do have a positive PNA as well, so this is what's also going to lead to that troughing of the eastern U.S. And things can get pretty cold as well. And I don't think we're done for snow here for portions of the eastern U.S. just yet here, especially in the Northeast, Great Lakes region. I don't think we're done with snow just yet for the season, which we could still see snow in some of these areas as well during the month of April as well. But things begin to change here as we get deeper into mid-April. And here you go. So this is a 5-day average from April 12th to the 17th. And look at this. You got a ridge that develops in the southeast. So you got a ridge that develops out here, and then you got troughing that develops here in the western U.S. This is a classic severe weather setup here. So you got your low track, something like this, and you could have severe weather in this area right in here. It's a classic severe weather type of setup here where you have that southeast ridge, and then you got troughing in the northwest. And this is kind of concerning because this has been a signal that's been ongoing for a while now, and it does have an agreement with the European ensembles as well. Now, it doesn't go for the entire month. I should note that. But you can see here in early month, big trough in the east, ridging in the west, and then bam, here you go getting into mid-April. And you can see here how that could continue for a decent amount of time, which of course the European ensembles only gets as far out as the 16th of April. But you kind of get an idea here from the European ensembles and the GFS ensembles that there is an agreement that we could see a pretty classic severe weather period or an active period for severe weather somewhere in this area right in here, potentially, for mid-April. And that's a little bit concerning there as well, especially given by a pretty good agreement, and it's been going on for a while. So it's certainly a signal that could be pretty hard to ignore as well, which if we kind of go back to the GFS summons and kind of look for the rest of the month, which as you get to late April, you see here that it really doesn't show much of a signal at all. So for right now, late April seems pretty unclear here. We may have a better idea for late April whenever we get into mid-April at that point as well. But right now, models don't have a really good agreement for late April, so really we don't know much about late April, but we kind of have a pretty decent idea of what could happen in early and mid-April as well. Let's check out them precipitation anomalies here. So we kind of go back here to early April here. You can see here it's wet across portions of the eastern U.S., but as we kind of get deeper into April here, if things do calm down a little bit as that trough really begins to settle in the eastern U.S., and then you got the big ridge that develops in the western U.S., if things kind of dry out for most areas in the U.S. And then when you get into mid-April, there it is right there. So then again, similar time period, April 12th to the 19th, you got a signal for above normal precipitation for the Arctic region that also goes through portions of the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and the Midwest as well. If there's an area I will watch for severe weather, just looking at the GFS, it'll probably have to be this area right in there. So then again, GFS Ensembles indicates a pretty classic active period of severe weather into mid-April. So it's definitely something to really keep an eye on. And if we check out the European ensembles now, it doesn't have it compared to average, but if we check out the rainfall mean from the European ensembles here, which will take a moment to load here, but eventually, as we get deeper into mid-April, you'll begin to notice here that some of those higher numbers do go up over some of the similar areas that the GFS ensembles is predicting as well. You can see here how it popped up right about there. So really, from the model standpoint here, they do indicate for the possibility for some active severe weather for portions of the Midwest, Ohio Valley, maybe as far north as the Great Lakes. That's a little bit way up there. But it could also go as far as southwest as the Texarkana region. So then again, if you live in the parts of the Midwest, Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, and Texarkana, even for portions of the Ozarks, you may need to pay attention to April, especially mid-April, very closely here because we could experience an active period of severe weather in that time period as well. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on very closely here over the next several days. So this is GFS Ensembles when it comes to teleconnections. This is another way of looking into teleconnections, and this is the PNA. So generally will be just slightly positive. That's what's going to give us some of that colder air in the eastern U.S. and that pretty good warm up in the western U.S. But you see here as we get deeper into mid-April, like right around April 15th, Then it becomes negative, and that's where you can begin to see troughing in the western U.S. and a ridge in the east. With the NAO standpoint here, it will generally stay negative, but you can see here how it kind of trends towards on the positive side here as well, especially getting into later into mid-April, and that could lead to ridging over uh, some rid. Actually, that could lead to some. Okay, that was a big brain fart. I don't know why I've been getting this backwards here all day. I apologize for that. But during a negative NAO, you kind of get some troughing in the eastern U.S., and that's what we're going to be experiencing. And then you get towards a positive NAO, and that kind of keeps some of that colder air a little bit further north. There we go. And that's a similar situation when you get into an AO. Negative AO is where it's going to keep the colder air further to the south. And then you go into a positive AO, kind of keeps that colder air a little bit further north, which is GFS Ensembles doesn't do a really good job when it comes to the AO, and you can see it's all over the place. So GFS almost is not really a good way to look into the AO. It's not been doing very well over the past couple months there. But let's check out the Cloud Prediction Center outlook here. And you can see I honestly have to agree with this forecast here. They got the greatest probabilities for more milder air in portions of New Mexico, Texas, even for portions of Oklahoma. It does have that little dip in the eastern U.S., and I think that's partially due to some of that strong troughing in early April. And with that big warm up, it's going to kind of even things out. That's going to kind of put things closer to average there for as a monthly average. And it does have some below normal anomalies across the northwest. Honestly, I think that could be pushed a little bit further east here to include portions of the northern plains as well. And this is precipitation here on the right side. It does have some of those above normal anomalies out there, but honestly, I think it will make a little bit more sense to extend some of these above normal anomalies, to include portions of the Ozarks, even for portions of the Texarkana region as well. I think to me makes a little bit more sense. But they do have below normal probabilities across the four quarter states into portions of the several plains there as well. But overall, from the Climate Predictors forecast, it's not too bad at all. But this is my forecast right here. So this is for temperatures. I got slight below average temperatures across portions of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, northern Wyoming, and portions of Dakotas, and far northwestern Minnesota as well. I think we can still see some big time cold air blasts here across portions of some of these areas in here as well, especially when that big trough here in the western U.S. begins to take shape. You'll get some of these big lows there that come by it. It could be able to drag some of that cold air farther to the south as well, and that can lead to some slight below average temperatures. Now, for portions of the coast there may be a chance you guys could see a couple warm ups as well, which could lead to a period of some slightly above normal temperatures, but I think generally throughout most of the month it's going to be slightly below average. And where we do not have any shades here, like in the Midwest, for example, I think it's going to be generally closer to average when it comes to temperatures. And then as you get further south here, things do get warmer. In the areas in the yellow, that's where we do have slightly above average temperatures. That includes the majority of the southeast. It includes parts of the mid-Atlantic, portions of the Southern Plains, and that goes up into parts of the Central Rockies as well. And then we got two areas of above average temperatures. You got one area across parts of the desert southwest into southwestern Texas, and then you got another area for southern Florida as well. Here's a look into precipitation. In the western U.S., we got a area of slightly above average precipitation for the far northwestern part of the U.S. So that includes western Washington and far northwestern Oregon. And do we have an area of slightly below average precipitation? That includes portions of southeastern Oregon, Nevada, Utah, portions of southern California, most of Arizona, a good chunk of New Mexico, and then also it extends to the portions of western Texas, western Kansas, the panhandle of Oklahoma, eastern Colorado, and then even goes up into parts of southwestern Nebraska as well. Everybody else is generally closer to average. And then things do get wetter as you continue to move off further to the east. We got a large area slightly above average precipitation that includes the majority of the Midwest, portions of the Northern Plains. That also includes portions of the Texarkana, the Tennessee Valley, and also for the Ohio Valley as well. And then we get another shade here. That's the above average region, which goes over pretty much the heart of the Midwest as well. So that includes portions of Missouri, Illinois, several Wisconsin, the northern half of Indiana, southwestern Michigan, and northwestern Ohio as well. And I think there's a possibility where we could see some flooding issues as well, because a lot of this moisture here, when we get this big southeast ridge to the trough to the northwest, I think we could see some trending thunderstorms over some of these areas in here, and that could lead to quite a bit of rain in some of those areas as well. So we definitely got to watch for that possibility for some flooding issues as well. Most of the East Coast is average for precipitation, except for the southern tip of Florida, where we do have slightly below average precipitation down there as well. Okay, so severe weather. We do have a large area of above normal severe weather for northeastern Oklahoma, southeastern Kansas, the majority of Missouri, most of Illinois, the entire state of Indiana, northern Arkansas, northwestern Tennessee, the western half of Kentucky, the western half of Ohio, and even up into southern Michigan. These are areas I will really focus on for severe weather during the month of April, especially when that big southeast ridge really begins to take shape. It's like going to keep some of the severe weather activity a little bit further north. And hopefully that happens here, because down here across the deep south, man, they got hit hard for the month of March, and they could really use a break. And unfortunately, we still got some severe weather in the forecast for some of these areas in here later next week. So that's certainly not a good thing for some of those areas as well, which I do have some of those areas across portions of the deep south in the slightly above average region down there as well. Now, I should note that the further north you go here, the averages for severe weather begin to decrease. That's something I should note as well. And given by the when it comes to average of severe weather, since it's kind of on the lower end compared to some of the southern states, I think it's pretty reasonable to add a large above normal region as well, because for some areas, one big severe weather event that could get you to above average for severe weather. It can happen as well, which could happen. Sometimes it can even happen in slightly above average regions as well, which does get as far north as several Wisconsin and central Michigan as well, which I think there could be some severe weather potential in some of those areas as well. So that's definitely something I should note as well. We do have an area of slightly below average severe weather. That includes southeastern Wyoming, southwestern Nebraska, western Kansas, eastern Colorado and New Mexico, western Texas, and also the panhandle of Oklahoma as well. You got a lot of drought issues out there, and that does lead to a lot of captive events out there as well with all that dry air stuff. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of severe weather activity. Some severe weather could be possible in those areas, especially down to portions of Texas. But really, compared to average, I think it's going to be slightly below average in some of those areas as well. And really, for the East Coast, I think we're going to be closer to average when it comes to severe weather. Okay. The final forecast is the overall forecast. We're going to start off in the northwest. I think it's generally going to be cool and stormy. I think we can see a lot of storms come from the Pacific into portions of the northwest. So you'll have stormy periods. There could be some snow in the higher elevations. And also, generally, it's going to be colder or cooler as well. And as you get further to the west, so portions of California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, southern Oregon and Idaho, and southwestern Wyoming. There's going to be some big warm-ups, but there's also going to be some cool downs as well at the same time as well. Within some of those cool downs, you can see some showers, possibly some snow in the higher elevations as well, which is also something else to watch for as well. So it's certainly going to be quite an interesting pattern for portions of the southwestern U.S. As you continue to move off to the east, the higher elevations of Wyoming and Colorado, I think we can certainly see some mountain snow as well, especially when we get deeper to mid-April, where we can see a lot of troughing in the western U.S. So I think there's going to be plenty of or a decent amount of snow in the higher elevations. In the lower elevations, there could be some rain, but I don't think it's going to be a whole lot. And then you move on to the northern plains of the upper Midwest. There's certainly going to be some cold blasts, and there's also definitely going to be some snow chances along with that as well. We're definitely not done with snow in some of those areas just yet across portions of the northern plains and the upper Midwest. And then you kind of get into this purple shade here. So across portions of the Central Plains and portions of the Midwest in the parts of the Great Lakes. Proper low track. What that means is that some of your low pressure systems, and I think that the majority of those will likely track over some of these areas in here as well. Within some of these lows here, depending on their strength here, it could be windy, so it could be very showery, miserable conditions. And there may be times where it may bring a little bit of snow as well. I don't think not everybody will see snow in these areas, but some areas might have the potential to see some snow in some of these low pressure systems as well. So that's also a possibility as well. And as you move further to the south here, in this dark red zone here, southeastern Colorado, eastern New Mexico, central and western Texas, the western half of Oklahoma, is where we do have wildfire risk. Unfortunately, I do think wildfire risks are going to continue. We still got those serious drought issues. I think there's going to be a lot of warm days. And anytime we have quite a bit of wind for some of these systems here that pass to the north, I think there's some of those wildfire risks are likely going to continue in those regions as well, unfortunately. And as we move further to the east, so Texarkana region, Ozarks, and that goes all the way up into the Ohio Valley, I think this is where we're going to see a decent amount of severe weather during the month of April as well. And I think that's going to be quite a common thing. You can also see a lot of ups and downs as well in some of these areas. With some of those big warm-ups can come with some severe weather. And back behind some of these cold fronts will be, of course, some big cool downs as well. So even for areas in the severe weather zone, there's definitely going to be some ups and downs in the pattern as well. As we get further southeast here, I don't think severe weather won't be as common. I think there could still be some severe weather in some of these areas here in the dark green, which is mild and also stormy as well. I think could still be some severe weather chances, but maybe not as much as areas a little bit further to the north will experience as well. In areas in mild stormy, that includes southeastern Texas, southern Louisiana, the southern half of Mississippi, most of Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Carolinas, far eastern Tennessee, and also southern Virginia as well. And then the final area, the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. Generally going to be ups and downs. We're going to see some warm-ups. There's going to be some cool-downs. With some of these cool-downs, we could see some snow chances, especially in portions of the New England states. I think that's definitely doable. We're definitely not done with snow in the Northeast just yet. You guys could still see snow in April. It's happened several times before. But also with some of these warm-ups, there could be some severe weather in portions of the Mid-Atlantic with some of these warm-ups as well. So that's also something to really pay attention to as well, especially if the ridge were to go away and a big cold front moves in. There could be some severe weather in some of these areas as well. So that's also another thing to really pay attention to as well. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Guys, like this video, hit the like button if you do like my channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications so you never miss an upload. If you've got some questions about this, put a comment section down below. Answer you guys' questions. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye, and have a good day.